Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. We're clearly discussing this against the backdrop of Coiltte's decision to sell 1,000 acres of public forestry, which I believe has been approved by the Minister. And in my opinion, against the background that already 40,000 acres of public forest lands have been transferred into private ownership by Coillte, means that, in my opinion, what we now need is a rigorous public inquiry into the activities of this organisation. In the past 3 years, they have amassed profits of over €400 million, paid virtually no dividends to the state, paid its own CEO a salary of just short of €500,000, despite the cap on semi-state figures and so on. Over $1 million of these monies was used, of this public land which has been privatised, was used to plug a pension fund deficit in that organisation. And what I want to ask the Minister is, what is this government doing to protect what is a vital amenity and asset belonging to the people of this country, on lands which, the subject of which were a geological survey which has already been commissioned to reveal the mineral wealth that exists under that land? Who's going to have access to that in the event of the lands or the crop being sold off? Will that survey be published? And what's the government going to do to protect the jobs in that industry, but crucially to develop other jobs, because we compare very poorly vis-à-vis other European countries which use forestry as a resource for job creation, but instead this seems to be a carte blanche to Coillte to sell off for a quick buck, despite the best interests of the state and the taxpayer.
Thank you, Deputy Daly. Minister, you have 4 minutes. Oh, sorry, Deputy Ferris, my apologies. I'm very sorry. We have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
During the 2000 general election campaign, spokespeople from both Fine Gael and from Labour vehemently denied there would be any sale of forestry, Coillte forestry, under their control. But that's exactly what is happening at this point in time. And we're all acutely aware of the latest statement regarding the privatisation by stealth as proven in the lands in Donegal. Since 2009, Coillte have sold off 108 million of publicly owned lands without any public accountability or scrutiny. And this, again, no dividends have come back to the state. And over the years, I put out numerous and numerous PQs regarding Coillte, and each reply I get back is Coillte is a private company, which couldn't be further from the truth. Coillte is owned by the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Finance. They're the shareholders in it. We just can't get an answer on it. The sale of Coillte property, Coillte lands and so forth, but that's been sold off. The interest will only be in the viable part of the forestry, the viable part of it. And we were told down in committee that there is a sizable proportion of lands under Coillte control that are not viable. What happens to the non-viable, unsaleable lands of Coillte when the profitable ones have been sold off, Minister? Another question I have to ask is regarding the mineral rights. The mineral rights that I asked, has there been exploration carried out regarding minerals under the control of Coillte land? And I was told that they had a detailed account of what is there. What happens to those rights? Like if you sell off the forestry, Coillte forest or an area to outside business people, and one of those interested businesses, international businesses, is chaired by the former Taoiseach here, Bertie Ahern. And what happens to the mineral rights there? The sale goes off, it's a 100-year lease or whatever it is. The mineral rights are there. Are they going to be protected by the state for the benefit of the state?
Thank you, Deputy. Minister.
I'd like to thank the deputies for bringing up this matter. And, as Deputy Ferris said, you mightn't get too many more answers out of myself on this, because but I'll read it as it is. I thank the deputies for raising this matter, as it gives me the opportunity to provide an update on the matter. Further to the government decision that a concession for the harvesting rights to Coiltte's forest be considered for sale, Coillte Board and management have been actively engaged in recent months with New Era, the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and my department to examine the financial and other implications of developing the potential of Coiltte's forest assets. As the Minister advised last week, it is the sale of the harvesting rights to commercial Coillte forest that has been investigated. Consultants have been engaged to do specific work around valuations and managing the way in which the sales process may proceed, with the aim of maximising the value to the state. if value is to be found, as well as taking account of issues that have been identified during the overall process. Some of the issues so identified include the possible impact to the timber industry, public access to recreational land, environmental and social impacts, and consequential implications for the company and levels of employment. These issues and measures, if necessary to address them, require detailed consideration. A number of bodies have highlighted their concern that the current proposal to sell the forest assets owned by Coillte presents a threat to the use of these forests by the people of Ireland and by visitors to the country. The Government is highly conscious that Coillte, as part of its management of some 442,000 hectares of the National Forest, plays a significant role in the provision of forest recreation activities. Coilte's forests provide a range of recreation opportunities for the general public, continuing a long tradition of open access to state-owned forests. It was therefore determined that the process would not include the sale of land. The future management of the state, the maintenance of the existing amenities and environmental issues are all being considered in the current analysis. The Government intends to protect the state assets, including associated public goods, which encompasses public access. It should be noted that most of the forests to which there is public access are not commercial crops. I wish to reiterate that the decision relates to standing commercial timber. The outcome of the overall analysis will be considered by the Government upon its conclusion, which is expected early in the new year. It is a very complex process, but I am assured deputies that the Government will act with caution. Finally, I note that the deputies were also inquiring about the recent proposed sale by public tender of forestry land in County Donegal. Coillte Toronto was established as a private commercial company under the Forestry Act 1988, and day-to-day operational matters, such as the sale acquisition of land, which take place regularly, are the responsibility of the company. This transaction is an operational matter at the discretion of the company and is separate from the Government's decision that a concession for the harvesting rights of Coilte's forests be put forward for sale. I trust that this clarifies the matter.
Thank you, Deputy.
I thank you for acknowledging the importance of public access. Allow me to give two examples of its importance from my own constituency of Clare. The Violet Hill Forest, which is located near Limerick, is a very popular amenity. Most notably, Crackla Wood attracts between 60 and 80,000 visitors every year. The East Clare Way follows a 172 circular route through some of East Clare's most spectacular and varied scenery, across Slievaughty and Slievebarna, and passes through parts of the Coillte estate. Also, I suppose, at a national level, we need to acknowledge that the Avondale House in County Wicklow, the home of Charles Stewart Parnell, is a forest park maintained to a high standard by Coillte. But there is an assumption abroad among people, probably a reasonable one, that the sale of the forest tree crop will produce a more aggressive commercial environment, and concerned groups fear that open access policy will be threatened and recreational amenities will no longer be maintained as they should be. Minister, I believe that state forests, even those which comprise commercial plantations, which, as I say, were planted ultimately to be harvested in a commercial manner, but they are all on publicly owned land and should be managed and maintained for the benefit of the Irish people, even after that particular crop is sold off. Thank you for the time, Chair.
Deputy Clare.
The Minister's answer is that he says the sale and acquisition of land takes place on a regular basis and is the responsibility of the company. Now, the people of Ireland believe that these forests are our land, our crop, to be managed on our behalf. And the reality is that Coillte are making decisions and selling our land behind closed doors. And I think what is clearly necessary, even more necessary now because of the Minister's answer, is that there would be a rigorous public inquiry into the actions of this organisation, which pays its chairman. It is a commercial semi-state, not a private commercial company, to my mind. It's a commercial semi-state, paying over the odds for its CEO, selling off land belonging to the people and not being accountable anywhere for that activity. There is outrage in Donegal at the proposition of selling another 1,000 acres, and the idea that the Minister would just say, "Oh, sure, that's nothing got to do with us, it's their decision." Not acceptable. We need scrutiny about where our money is going. Why has this crop or these lands ended up in the ownership of the Irish Forest Unit Trust, an amalgam with the AIB, Bank of Ireland, and which Coillte itself has bought into? There's a huge amount of unanswered questions about what is a fundamental state asset, which a country half the size of Ireland, Switzerland, employs 10 times as many people in its forestry as we do here.
Thank you, Deputy Daly.